Everyone to chesslecture.com. This is International Master William Paschal, and today I'm starting a new series I've entitled Spastastic Attacking Miniatures. We're going to feature some miniature games by the former world champion Boris Spassky. Spasky's kind of unique because he was such a universal player. Renowned for his attacking chess, really his play was based both positionally and tactically. And I think that's really reflected in a great way by his ability to universally play both e4 and d4, kind of ambidextrously. I got the idea to do this series because I had an online argument with someone about Spassky, in fact, a player who I had never really studied as much as some others, but who I've had a great amount of respect for. And an anonymous person on a chess site was saying that they thought, Spassky wasn't that strong. And I thought, this is crazy. And a lot of people forgot how strong Spassky really was. He was world champion. He put up a very, very tough fight against Fischer at the peak of his power. So Spassky is one of the greatest players of all time, and I think he's one of the players that's slowly kind of being forgotten because of the fact that he lost the match against Fischer, hurt his career a bit. Anyway, let's take a look at the first game I picked out. This is a beautiful example. Again, these games are on the shorter side, so perfect for a lunch break. Let's take a look. Spassky plays e4, and his opponent is our own Lajos Portisch, the great Hungarian grandmaster, who I do know personally, and he's still around. So d4, and Portisch plays the Nimzovich defense with d5. This was a very early game in 1957. This was played in the Under-26 World Team Championship, and I'm not sure exactly where the game was played or where the venue was, but anyway, you get an idea that Spassky and Portisch were both quite young here, and Portisch experiments in the opening. Later, Portisch would go on to become quite strong in all aspects of the game, including the opening, but this is not a regular part of Portisch's repertoire. He just tries to take Spassky out of book. So knight c3, this is a good move, and I think that the most dynamic move against this line of the Nimzovich. I can't remember who this is attributed to, but in any case, the idea is Black plays into a kind of French here after e6. He gets a knight c6 against the French. So this is strange, Guimard French or whatever, but instead of this, Black's main alternative is to take on e4. I think this is clearly the best move. I'm not sure that this variation has a name for White, but I think it was first played in a really high-level game by Curious. But hard to say who first played it, but maybe we can look it up. So d takes e4, and now White would play d5, and Black would play knight e5, and White would play queen d4. And again, the positions I played this with White, the position's pretty close. I don't think that White has a big edge here. But it's a nice open position, good for a tactical player like Curious. In any case, I thought Spassky would probably go for this line. So, okay, Portisch plays e6. He gets a passive variation of the French. And then we start to see Spassky's kind of positional attacking style. He doesn't try anything fancy. He plays knight f3. Portisch plays knight to f6. Now look at this bishop on c8. That's a problem, right? That's a serious long-term strategic problem. Bishop g5. And I thought this is interesting. Now, we see it starts to get a kind of French formation, and immediately Spassky pins the knight, and he starts to think about trading this knight because the position could turn out to be a closed one. It's very interesting. Bishop g5, bishop e7, and still he keeps the tension to some degree, but he has to do something here, so he plays bishop takes f6, and that's like giving up the two bishops. You'd think, oh, this is kind of strange to just voluntarily give up the two bishops. Watch what happens here. Bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and then bishop b5. And so this is one thing that I think that a lot of chess players don't know about. And this concept I was teaching one of my students the other day, the fact that two knights often do better than bishop and knight do against the bishop pair. there are certain positions where the pawn structure is locked, where the pawn structure is damaged on one side, and there's a lot of pawns, maybe all the pawns are on the board, like this position where the two knights are actually very, very strong. French defense, Caro-Kann, kind of Rossolimo, Sicilian, things like that. Castles now by Portisch, castles by Spassky, and then g6. And Portisch wants to keep his bishop on this diagonal. This move is, I think, a kind of waiting move to see what Spassky's going to do. Give his bishop the ability to defend the king's side. I think that's a very reasonable waiting move. But it wasn't an easy situation for Portisch. What is he supposed to do? If he moves bishop d7, he loses the pawn on d5. So he doesn't want to give up the center. It's not an easy situation. Rook e1, again, Spassky just keeping the tension, unpleasant for black. And then bishop g7, black continues to wait because he has no good way to develop, and he doesn't want to give up the center. So finally Spassky just takes on c6, cashes in on the pawn structure advantage, and b takes c6. And I tell you, Portisch probably wasn't very happy with this position because this is the kind of situation we're talking about where the knights do really a little better than the bishops. Particularly the bishop on c8 obviously is very bad. But even the bishop on g7 doesn't have a lot of potential. I mean, maybe it could if we could play c5 or something like that, but this is down the road. So we don't see any flashy tactics here. This shows the positional Spassky. B takes c6, knight a4, immediately jumping on the outpost square on c5. And you'll see his ability to combine positional play and tactical play against a very strong opponent. Now, obviously, Portisch wasn't at his peak yet, but he would get there very soon. So knight a4, rook b8. Portisch wants everything active. You see his intentions are the best. e5. Now we get the closed position that the knights are really happy with. We lock it down. We close out the bishop on c8. And what can Portisch do? I thought he should play maybe f6. Instead he played f5. And that's kind of leveraging this weird threat of expanding on the king's side with g5 and g4. It looks like, oh, he just played f5, don't worry about it. But I think that Spassky is worried about it because the threat is actually to play g5, g4 after f5. So that's why he takes on f6. And it's also the Nimzowitsch position. You get the e5 outpost. Again, Nimzowitsch would be very happy here. So queen takes f6, and now we get an interesting situation where I don't know that I say that Spassky made a mistake per se, but I thought that the safe move here would be queen d2. That would develop a piece, defend f2, give the queen some scope over here. So instead of that, Spassky plays kind of lazy move b3, which will probably be necessary in the next couple of moves. But I say it's a lazy move. Maybe it was actually a brilliant move because it encouraged Portisch to do something wild here. Portisch was frustrated with his position. He had no activity. I mean, I guess you could play g5, but it looks kind of a little bit brash. So he sort of freaks out and plays e5 here. And this is a kind of brilliant move that a strong grandmaster like Portisch might actually use to get away with a win against a weaker grandmaster. But Spassky's able to refute it in kind of classic fashion here. You can't take with the knight without allowing queen takes f2 check. You can't take with the rook without allowing bishop g4, which gives black a lot of activity. Taking with the pawn. The main point, of course, is that black activates his bad bishop at the cost of a pawn. But check what happens here. Pawn takes e5. I mean, I'm not sure that even knight takes e5 is completely off the table there, but it would allow a lot of activity with queen takes f2 check. So pawn takes e5, which does give way to strong pass pawn. Nevertheless, Portisch gets some activity. He frees the position for his pieces. And again, against a lesser player, it probably would have worked. But watch how coolly Spassky handles this. Queen f4, and then knight d4. And this move is one of the most amazing moves that I ever seen Spassky play. And take care, this game was played in 1957, and if you put this on a modern 2015 computer, this is the move that the computer plays. So For anyone who doubts, Spassky was world champion, caliber and the best player in the world, and deserving of the credit that he is. I mean, this kind of move is what we're talking about. So Spassky allows this check on f2 and realizes that this actually doesn't do anything. If black plays queen takes f2 check, king h1, the position is just good for white. White has a very, very powerful passed pawn. He's threatening knight takes c6, which is pretty crippling, actually. And his other knight's swinging in as well, and black really doesn't have any counterplay at all. So, sadly and slowly, I think that Portisch just realized that his position is kind of bankrupt strategically, and perhaps he should have taken on an f2 anyway, or perhaps he should have played the computer recommendation of bishop d7, I guess, in this position, which looks pretty horrible, honestly. But instead he played this move, bishop takes e5. And that's the kind of move you make after you made a miscalculation and you start to lose your composure. Because this just loses out right now. Spassky just combines on him with rook takes e5, queen takes e5, and knight takes c6. And this is hanging here, this rook on b8. So I'm not sure if Spassky, had outcalculated Portisch, or Portisch saw this and thought he had some tricks still left in the position. And he thought the other way the position would just be strategically lost. So he went for this, giving up material. But in any case, this is lost, but white has to defend very accurately. Queen g5, and it looks scary for a moment. Knight takes b8, bishop h3, and here, in this position, I guess if white plays g3, black has some counter chances. Chances to get, you play g3, there's chances to get your queen around here, and most importantly, we're going to be able to just recapture at some point on b8, and maybe, the bishop's not hanging. Maybe this will be not so easy for white. So this move, queen f1, I think it's possible that Portisch even missed this. It's one of those moves you don't maybe consider when you're calculating in advance. But in any case, this is winning now. So cool defense, great positional play, good practical decisions. And now Portisch is just desperate. He should take back the knight on b8, although he is lost in that position. Instead he plays this crazy va-banque rook transfer, and Spassky easily consolidates. So he's up a piece. f3, rook d4, rook e1, rook d2, and rook e2. And at this point, Portisch resigned. And it may seem like kind of easy game, but it wasn't so simple. Actually, Spassky outthought Portisch on several levels in this game. And Portisch quite a good calculator, so he was fooled. I thought this was a good illustration of Spassky's practical strengths and his positional understanding. Thanks for joining us here for part 1 of Spasstacular, Attacking Miniatures with International Master William Paschal. Stay tuned for more installments here at chesslecture.com. Bye-bye.